So to go into dungeons and raids, it's like, yeah, there's dungeon raids, of course.
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing, because people see that and they're just like, oh yeah, whatever, okay, cool, we expect that.
Yep.
Even though that's so much of what we're going to be doing. And that's where it gets really kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because Mists of Pandaria was, okay, it had its scenarios and the challenge modes and the pet battles. It was like all this kind of like, nice, a little bunch of nice to haves, and the core was just, hey, loads of game, have fun. And then what started to happen, though, is we had the big build-around features that was the, hype, big hype, garrisons, player housing in World of Warcraft. Yeah. You can have a garrison in Talador and custom... And that kind of got walked back, didn't it? But from that point on, we just had big build-around features, and that was the way they did stuff. So now it's this weird thing where there's no build-around feature for this expansion. The build-around feature seems to be a good expansion.
That's exactly the weird thing, yeah.
And the players and the marketing, we've all been so trained to think, wow, is Azerite gear going to be as cool as artifact weapons? And it's like artifact weapons, they were a cool system.
They were like the pinnacle of what a build-around system could possibly be.
Yeah.
And basically they're trying to recreate their greatest hits and missing and going, shit, well maybe we should try a different genre of music this time.
Yeah, whereas this time it seems to be a lot more, hey, we're going to make the game more broad and fun and make its fundamentals better. And that's, in a way, to somebody who is disengaged with the game, really fucking boring. They're like, profession revamp, don't care. Don't care about WoW, so don't care about profession revamp. I want to hear about player how... this like crazy marketing thing that is just, it's such an inherently marketable concept that's going to blast through to everybody. But I think for people who actually play the game, they see the new profession stuff and I get super excited. So I've had this weird thing where we've seen this and then new professions and talent trees. And in my head, it's been like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want to see the game do. This is exactly the fundamentals I want to see them invest in. I don't want a new build-around feature. I want this. This is great. Oh, wow, the game is going to be so much easier for them to develop and all of that. But then people have been so trained to expect certain big hype points that I think getting a cinematic that is more teasing exploration and wonder, and then an expansion that seems to be more focused on building the basics of the game way better than normal.
Yeah.
And it just... Nicky's also, I think, really true. He just said, what I've realized recently, more and more people are just out there to be angry. In the WoW side, yeah. Like, going through the chat, it's one of the reasons why... And, there's 3.2k people here. We had 16 to 18k people with us live, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And certainly if you have a tiny percentage of people being a bit shitty or a bit bad faith about things, and then you just triple or quadruple the size of the audience, you're just going to see more shit in chat.
Yeah.
It was just that whenever N was increased, it became so much more noticeable what that tiny minority was. Yeah. And it just became obvious that, there's nothing Blizzard could do to make any of these people happy.
That's fundamentally
short of a 0.01% chance super effective critical hit.
Yeah.
But I suppose you could also say then that to be interested in so many of these features, that actually involves a lot of benefit of the doubt. It involves seeing the potential in this, and if Blizzard have trained people for such an amount of time to be disappointed and skeptical, then
that's the thing, right? That's the problem with this marketing stuff, is that for so long, and this is like it's not unique to World of Warcraft, but novelty is what people want from something new. Obviously that's in the fucking name, novelty, but it's like, you can't say, in this expansion, we're going to have good dungeons and raids and a good endgame, because everyone will go, we don't fucking believe you. Yeah. We need to see that actually happen. It's like, you can't market it's good this time, or you can't market, the world content here is going to make you happy. You have to sell people on the novelty stuff. That's how marketing has always worked. It's always, you need a back of the box feature that's new and interesting. Sequels can't be, it's the same as the first one, I guess, unless you're like a Souls game, in which case that kind of works out, but that requires really high investment and engagement in the initial thing. And even then, that's not going to get like people who were kind of on the fence back. So it's that thing of like they kind of just have to bite the bullet and actually ask, okay, here's a little bit of novelty, but we're just going to try to make it good this time. And that's not going to work for so many people because they just don't have any faith. I mean, honestly, I don't have a lot of faith in a lot of the execution of certain aspects of this, and I'm very much like keeping any of my excitement for features in check until we see the alpha and beta, because it's like I've seen them try to make Flappy Bird in Bastion. I don't know if Dragon Riding is going to be good till I get my hands on it.
That's fair.
We'll get into some of that later, but like so much of that is just novelty is what'll get people super excited out of nowhere, but then they have to like actually stick the landing, and we're not going to see that until alpha and beta, which is why I'm happy they kind of went, here's a couple of things, as opposed to trying to sell us the world. It implies they're trying. And
I think that's a really powerful thing that you brought up. They continually have sold people on big novelty and massive launch day sales. Shadowlands, fastest selling PC game of all time, for about the 15 seconds before Cyberpunk came out. And you know, obviously a month after the things wear thin. I think Fizzlewick made a good point. I know this is something that a lot of people in our line of work feel very big when they see people reference opinions they supposedly have. Just said, same with movie criticism. Some creators have nuanced takes and stuff, but their community tends to attract people that just hate stuff on an emotional basis. I'm not going to say that's like, I wouldn't say community, because I think the people who maybe hang out and chat all the time and are, you could actually sort of say community. They're not the people doing that. But it's the fair weather sort of, fly in, all you are is ammunition to the thing I'm going to do. And then you kind of see these like completely wrong versions of things you said be kind of perverted and twisted. It's really annoying. For sure. And I know certainly on both sides of whatever aisle, I guess it's the internet. I shouldn't be surprised. Memes.
Yeah, well,
I don't mean memes. Memes as in Dawkins' word. Yeah,
that's the really fun thing about being engaged in something. You always have to contend with people who are willing to do effective drive-bys, and that's one of the things that's the thing you learn on the internet. You have to remember that, someone isn't serious by default. You can't. You have to take everything with a mountain of salt until you work your way through the salt and kind of get to see someone regularly or something like that. You kind of assume, but you have to have really loose assumptions of what people are actually saying, and that's why I think that's what it's difficult for Blizzard. I think because I think they have such a difficult signal to noise ratio on feedback to capture.
Yes,
where they'll see a lot of people. Obviously, it's easy to discount specific people for like just completely unreasonable criticisms and stuff, but it's like it's just so hard for them to pick out what's real feedback versus what's someone who's not even just talking about people who are like giving feedback with a good intention, but it's not good feedback, but literally like picking out the noise of people who are actively malicious in their feedback. And that's why I hope that they have a very long alpha and beta feedback for this one, because I can't remember who it was, but someone said it's like it's not about waiting until what we see in terms of the stuff, but the first wave of alpha feedback. That's what'll sell them on this expansion in terms of hope, is not the alpha, but the first wave of feedback in terms of what will they hear from us and change.
Yeah.
I think that is honestly spot on with that one. I think a couple people said that. That is completely spot on, because the amount of times we'd be like, okay, this alpha's looking pretty okay, could use work, and then it never gets the work. But yeah.
Here's a great example. Shadowlands could have been a brilliant expansion if they had have turned Covenants into 4 big reputations that your character could do, which, by the way, would have fit the story they were telling better. And then you were just able to swap between whatever Covenant kit you wanted. If they did that, then sure, things would have been overly complicated, but from a player friction perspective, it would have been so much more playable. And that it fundamentally would have worked better. They didn't listen to the feedback. If they had have listened to people's feedback on Azerite gear and on the reforging that they put in.
Indeed.
BFA could have been a way more playable expansion. And I think it's just that thing. Have Blizzard taken enough L's to kind of get off their high horse in those things? They certainly seem more... In as far as And as far as they kind of can be in the way that their communications happen, as opposed to just community gets angry, Yoshi P says, I'm sorry 50 times, please understand 50 times, and then people generally have the faith that, the fix will be delivered. So I think that's what it is. I'm definitely going to say don't pre-order.
No, don't, never.
Like, to be clear, we can be excited about a game, that doesn't mean we're saying you should pre-order, so...
No, absolutely
definitely
never.
that.
That's, I think anyone who's been in video games these days is just, don't pre-order. All you're doing is buying a product that doesn't finish it.
Yeah.
And the only time you ever pre-order is if it's a physical good that you very much want from a trusted seller that is limited. Especially digital. If you pre-order digital, then they have you buy the whatever, more or less. But there was one thing I wanted to bring up about that specifically, about the kind of friction point that you were talking about, because it was literally something I was writing about before we started in terms of FF14. Because they basically they had a bunch of stuff in the recent patch that addressed a lot of like the A Realm Reborn content from 2013 that was like, basically it wasn't like terrible content, but there were very, very bad friction points. And the way I put it in the script for a video was basically like, let's see, what was it? Yeah, the devs know something important. You can focus on giving people reasons to play, but it can be more important to avoid the opposite. Because like the one dungeon was really boring, one you get lost in, one you have no idea what to do in, people disappear in front of you, like to the return point in Hawk Manor. It's like those are reasons people will not want to play the game that day. And the next time they go to play the game, they'll think of that experience and go, well, I don't want that fucking experience again. And that's that negativity bias thing, where it's like, I think they've been really, really bad at actually getting through those friction points.
Yeah.
Because you get a friction point every week with a Great Vault. You get a friction point every week with Raid whenever you get really shitty loot. You get a friction point with like not being invited to a group because you're the wrong covenant. All that stuff were like, there were so many points of playing Shadowlands that was, no, this has been a shit experience and you have to power through this to continue getting to the stuff you like. And so much of that was like, for a lot of people, evidently, the friction was too much for them to continue playing. And I think that's something they need to be super careful of here. But I think they've been like kind of... Getting rid of systems will do that. The ease of use of like talent swapping, especially if they get the import and share functions working, then that's going to be all of that stuff will likely go away.
Purely the removal of borrowed power fixes so many problems.
Yep.
It's quite something.
There's another one, Dark Souls saying, friction point needing a token's worth of gold for legendary. The sheer amount of alts that I've just mentally crossed off in my head from playing ever because I don't want to buy a legendary is there, and you're like, no matter how low the price goes, well, I mean, within reason, if the price is still 50, 60k, I'm like, that's a fairly, like, that's a small amount of gold, but it's still like, that's a barrier to me for playing like a bunch of alts, which is my preferred playstyle is get to a decent gear level on a load of different alts for a load of different gameplay experiences. It's how I played Legion. It's how I played BFA even, but in Shadowlands, it's just like, go fuck yourself. Like, okay.
And now it's just talent points.
Yep.
That's it.
Indeed.
All the damage you took from being fisted with legendaries, it's just talent points now. That's it. It's crazy.
Indeed.